The following is a Shaw TV Public Affairs presentation. Constituency Report is produced as a public service by members of the BC Legislature through the facilities of Shaw TV.
Hi there, and welcome to Constituency Report on Shaw TV. I'm Jeff Dean, your host, and I'm here talking with Jennifer Rice. We're going to be talking about her work as MLA for the North Coast and as Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Preparedness. Hi Jen, thanks for talking with me.
Hi, glad to be here. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks. So we just came through a very narrow election campaign. The results weren't clear for a really long time. I'm just wondering, how was the campaign for you up on the North Coast?
Yeah. Well, yes, indeed. It was a very exciting campaign, waiting for the results of Ronna Ray Leonard's election. We were happy to see that she had come in with quite a margin, but initially on E-Day, she was in the lead by 9 votes, which was quite a sitting at the edge of your seat moment for many of us, particularly for Ronna Ray. Up north, we had a rigorous campaign. BC Liberals worked very hard. Big shout out to Herb Pond. This is his second time running under the BC Liberal banner, and I think he put in a really good effort. But I ended up winning again, second term. I'm so excited. I'm honored to have the trust of the constituents of North Coast, and I won with 57% of the vote, which is a pretty significant margin. And again, that I'm very humbled by that, and I take that role very seriously. And I'm having a great time here, being in government for the first 90 so days.
Great.
Yeah.
When the NDP government was sworn in, you were appointed as Parliamentary Secretary for Emergency Preparedness. Can you tell us a bit about what's involved with that role? Yeah.
Well, this is a file that's really important to me. Of the 87 ridings or constituencies we have in BC, the North Coast riding, the riding I represent, has the largest amount of coastline. And spending time a year ago this week, in Bella Bella during the sinking of the Nathan E. Stewart tugboat and the subsequent oil spill was a real eye-opener for me on how we are prepared or not prepared for emergencies in this province. I was also in Masset a few years back as the MLA when they had their second big earthquake, and we had to evacuate Masset, and by doing that we had to go down to sea level to go up a hill to get to safety. So it was an eye-opener again for me that we could do a little bit better as far as earthquake and tsunami preparedness on Haida Gwaii. I'll never forget the phone call I got from the former Environment Minister when the Russian cargo ship, the Simashir, had lost steering and was about to crash into Haida Gwaii and spill copious amounts of oil on its shorelines. Thankfully, that never happened, and the Canadian Coast Guard and the support of a private tug company came in to get it off the rocks, and we prevented a horrible, potentially horrible incident. And so these experiences, somehow I'm gravitated towards disasters or emergencies, and so I'm particularly interested in it, and I did ask John Horgan if I could work on this file, and so I was really delighted that he had faith in me to take it on. He appointed me Parliamentary Secretary right in the midst of BC's worst wildfire season, and so I'm honored that he had so much faith in me to handle this file, and it is a file that I really am passionate about. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the wildfires. I think this summer was the worst ever for BC by some measures. The NDP government was sworn in right in the middle of it, and I think it was just the day after that you were appointed to the Premier's Wildfire Task Force. And I understand you went to tour the fire zone to see what it was like firsthand. Can you tell me what that was like and what sort of response the government is making?
Yeah, it was literally, we were sworn in on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, it was, here's the light switch to your new offices. Oh, by the way, tomorrow, Thursday, you're off to wildfire communities. And that's exactly what we did. Minister Farnworth, the public safety minister, the minister I work with most closely, and Minister Donaldson, the Minister of Forest, Lands, Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development. Well, essentially, we'll say the Forest Minister in short. The three of us went off to wildfire communities immediately. We met with frontline firefighters. We met with the Red Cross. We met with volunteers. We met with emergency management personnel. We met with the public service who came from all ministries, whether that be housing or citizen services, whether your ministry is related. People came out and were deployed to wildfire communities to help manage things. We met with evacuees. We met with businesses that had been either seriously interrupted, or who suffered devastating effects. We also met with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and some of his cabinet. They formed an ad hoc wildfire response committee, and we formed our own provincial committee, and we've been working together ever since. Essentially since the day we were sworn in. And so that was essentially my summer. After we were sworn in, I'd been traveling to many of these communities that were directly impacted or direct or indirectly impacted. We went to Quesnel, for example, who that community wasn't a community that was specifically under evacuation, but the road closures impacted the ability of that community to count on the robust tourism industry that they rely on. That they were impacted as well. We went to Bella Coola, Highway 20, the only road in and the only road out of Bella Coola was closed off, and that meant residents, and these are also my constituents within North Coast, they got low on produce, on milk, on diapers and supplies. And so immediately we went to work on making sure that we got these important commodities into the community, make sure we could get their mail to them because their mail was interrupted for 3 weeks. And yeah, it literally was an unprecedented wildfire season and quite devastating. We haven't seen anything like that in BC. We had 65,000 people displaced at some point during the summer. Over 1.2 million hectares of land that have been burned. Wow. Thankfully, no lives lost. We did lose some structures. We lose some homes and some businesses. A lot of fencing for the ranching community, but no lives lost. And for that, I'm really grateful for the tremendous work of the public service.
Great. Are there any lessons that you've learned, or ways that you think the public service can learn about responding to these kinds of wildfires?
Well, I mean, being prepared is a shared responsibility. So local governments have a role to play, the provincial government has a role to play, the federal government, First Nations governments, and individuals. So I think this was a real eye-opener for individuals on examining their individual level of preparedness. Do you have a kit? Are you ready to go? Do you have supplies of drinking water? Do you have batteries, fresh batteries for a radio if the power is cut off? And I've noticed that there's been quite an uptake, not with just wildfire preparedness, but with earthquake preparedness and our individual preparedness. The Wildfire Task Force, we've been meeting regularly and talking about the recovery now, because now we're into recovery. We had a very long period of time where we were just responding in the immediate, and now we are talking about the long-term effects, and we'll feel these effects for years to come. So we've got resources put into the tourism sector, into the agriculture sector, We have supports for individuals. The Red Cross has been a tremendous partner in supporting individuals and supporting small businesses with emergency funds and into the long term. So, you know, we're working hard to do a better job of being prepared for next time, because we know there'll be a next time, particularly with the effects of climate change. We can do a lot, but we also have a responsibility to be prepared as individuals as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to change topics a little bit here. The NDP government has said that its top priority is to make life more affordable for people, and I'm just wondering what that means. What do you think it means for the people in your constituency?
Well, we've been in government for 3 months approximately, and I think, you know, we've had 16 years of a different level of government, or different government, and with different priorities. And already within 3 months, we've already made decisions and you know, put forward legislation that is going to make life better for people. And people in my constituency have come in to say thank you for the fact that we've raised social assistance rates by $100. We've raised the disability rate by $100 a month, which is quite significant. And we've also increased the amount of earnings that people on social assistance and disability can earn before we claw that money back. So it really helps give people a leg up. And that's something that I've seen reflected back within the North Coast constituency, where it's really meant a lot to people. And some of the other things we've done is, you know, reduce MSP premiums by 50%. And these are changes that have either come into effect already or are nearly in effect. So this is an immediate change that people will see and will benefit from. So overall, I think that the feedback has been really positive.
Great,
Yeah.
great. Still a lot of work left to do on that front, I understand.
Oh yeah, of course. It's really hard to undo 16 years of BC Liberal governing within the first 3 months. We are working hard. All the ministers are working really hard to you know, deliver on their mandate letters, but it will take some time. I mean, these are 16 years of BC Liberal neglect, in my view, and you know, now we have an opportunity to really make life more affordable and bring people back into the forefront of government. We're there to serve all British Columbians, not just a select few, not just those at the top or those that are our friends. We're there to serve everyone, and that will take some time, but it's really exciting to be on the government side and to be a part of that now.
Great.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
You were a opposition MLA for 4 years, and now you're on the government side. I'm wondering, how does that change how you represent and serve your constituents?
Well, you know, my motivation hasn't changed. The work I do, the advocacy I do, reflecting the voices of those in North Coast into Victoria, nothing has changed for me in that front. However, what has changed is that I now have the tools to actually implement the change, or at least in a much more speedy way. You know, I spoke to a high school class recently, a college class recently, who had asked me, what does it feel like to be in government now? What does it feel like to be, what did it feel like to be in opposition? And what does it feel like now to be in government? And it, you know, how I describe it is that, you know, sometimes you're under the weather, and you're under the weather for a very long time, but you don't really know that you're under the weather until you actually come into health or start getting a good night's sleep and you feel great. And that's how I feel being in government, because there is a government that's receptive to the things that I raise about the North Coast. There are ministers that are listening to me, and when I raise issues about things that we need to do in the North Coast, they hear me and they get back to me much more quickly, and that feels great.
Yeah, it must feel like that for a lot of people out there who've felt neglected by the Liberal government for so long. Are there any people who back in your community who you are representing in Victoria now?
Well, I mean, a lot of the issues that I raised before as the opposition MLA, I'm raising again now, and working with government now to find solution. And again, a lot of this can't happen overnight. I think, you know, some of the changes we've seen to BC ferries, for example, I would love to fix those right now. Like the fares have skyrocketed over the last 16 years, particularly the last 4 years. I would love to change that right away, but that can't happen as quickly as I'd like, but we're going to see changes around ferries within the 2018 February budget. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm working with Education Minister Rob Fleming to get on with replacing Prince Rupert Middle School. So I think the future is optimistic. Yeah.
Great. Okay, we've got to go to a break now. During the break, Jennifer's contact information will be listed on the screen in case the viewers at home want to get in contact with her. Thanks, we'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Constituency Report on Shaw TV. I'm here talking with Jennifer Rice, the MLA for North Coast. And Jennifer, in the second section, I wanted to talk a bit about the economy in your riding. I understand that the container terminal in Prince Rupert recently completed a major expansion, and I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about what that will mean for your riding.
Sure. Yeah, I had the pleasure of being in Prince Rupert when they had their ribbon cutting of the Phase 2 expansion of the Fairview Container Terminal, and I had the Transportation and Infrastructure Minister, Claire Trevena, up. I had our Minister for Trade, Bruce Ralston, up as well for this. It's a really monumental time for us because the Phase 2 expansion essentially brought us in those big cranes, the Malacca Max cranes, which take the containers off and on the ship and onto our railroad and utility corridor. They look like dinosaurs, don't they? Yeah. So, you know, we've got growing trade, imports and exports, and you know, the expansion of the container terminal means, well, over 200 new jobs. These are longshoreman jobs added to the to our workforce in Prince Rupert. The ILWU is the union that represents the longshoremen in Prince Rupert, and so to have 200 more of these types of jobs, which are high-paying, you know, good family-supporting jobs in Prince Rupert, is muchly needed and muchly appreciated to Prince Rupert. And the Port of Prince Rupert is continuing to expand and continuing to diversify, which is what we know is necessary to have a robust economy. You know, being a resource-dependent or a resource community, we know very well the cycles of boom and bust, and so when we diversify the products that are coming through the Port of Prince Rupert, this means much more stability and you know, stability for workers in Prince Rupert, and so we welcome those jobs, and I was glad to be there and part of that milestone in the expansion.
Great. I understand you were at an event this past weekend that AltaGas was putting on. They were showcasing their new facility that's under construction. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So AltaGas is building a propane export facility on Ridley Island in Prince Rupert, or near Prince Rupert. This will be Canada's first propane export facility. And you know, people may or may not know, but propane is a byproduct of the natural gas extraction that is already occurring in the Northeast. And often we have to just burn that off, that excess product off as a product of the processing that occurs in the Northeast. So by actually capitalizing on that, we're adding value to a resource already, and we're exporting it out of Prince Rupert. So it's exciting in the sense that we're adding value to something already happening in our province. And not just in our province, we're actually taking propane from other facilities from the Northeast, exporting that to countries such as India, where they will be using propane in their stoves for cooking. You know, right now they're using things like kerosene, which is a much dirtier fuel. They're even, you know, using dung as fuel, which has really contributed to poor air quality. So propane is much cleaner burning, and it's, you know, necessary for cooking in places such as India. So we're glad to be a part of that. You know, part of that that project. It's a partnership with both Port Edward and Prince Rupert, both local governments, as well as local First Nations. So the city will be receiving revenues, we'll be creating more jobs not just in Prince Rupert, but up along the line as well. And First Nations, local First Nations will benefit. And that's just an example of doing industrial development going forward under our new government, which is around partnerships and making sure everyone is included and a part of the economy and benefiting from the economy. And it's just one example. And I was happy to have Premier Horgan and Energy Minister Mungall up in Prince Rupert to get a tour of the construction and where we're at right now, and it's really exciting. I mean, the part we toured was the roof, essentially, of the tank that will hold the propane, and so it's, imagine more of a cylindrical shape made of concrete and steel, and they will raise the roof by actually pressurizing it, so pumping in a lot of air and allowing the air to lift it up like a balloon. So fascinating to get on the ground and see how it works or how it will look, get an idea of that. Yeah.
Exporting propane is something new for BC. I understand that you guys toured some other facilities. That one of the proposed LNG facilities in Prince Rupert, is it, or was it the one in Kitimat? Have you? What can you tell us about the potential for LNG up in your riding?
Well, you know, we've heard a lot of proponents walking away from LNG projects in the Northwest. Prince Rupert was affected by that. So the energy tour that the Premier went on, he toured 2 potential sites in Kitimat. One of these projects seems very likely to come to fruition. However, currently in Prince Rupert, the LNG projects are stalled or delayed or cancelled altogether at this point. So touring the propane facility, you know, at least it shows an example of we can still do industrial development in the Northwest. Prince Rupert's just not in the immediate future going to be benefiting from an LNG terminal.
Okay. All right. I'm going to change topics again for a little bit and ask about the first 100 days of the NDP government. It's almost been 100 days since your government was sworn in. And I'm just curious, what would you say are some of the initiatives that the government has taken that you've been involved with or are most proud of?
Okay, well there's a long list, and I was actually reviewing the list earlier, and it's hard to just pick some of the favorites. Like I said in the beginning of the show, I am totally impressed with the work of our government, of our ministers on getting things out the door within the first 90 days. I think we should be proud of a lot of the things that we have done already. And of course, there's much more to come. We talked about earlier just things like raising the social assistance rates or the disability rates. And I think that was a big thing for people in the Northwest. We have some of the highest poverty rates in the province. So that was a real lift for people in my riding that I'm really proud of that. I'm happy that we prioritize that going forward. We're working towards eliminating MSP or medical premiums or the medical tax. We've cut that in half right away, which I think, just grew astronomically under the previous government to a level that was just unattainable or unsustainable for many people. So, I mean, those are just a couple of things. Other things that are really relevant to North Coast are banning the trophy hunt of grizzly bears and banning grizzly bear hunting in the Great Bear Rainforest. I have the largest swath of the Great Bear Rainforest in my riding, and many coastal First Nations and coastal communities are really glad to see us taking a stand and ending the trophy hunt. There's no need to have bear heads and claws put on people's walls. It goes against the values of coastal First Nations, and we see more value in a bear alive with bear viewing than we do dead in trophy hunting. So that's just three things.
Great. Well, we just have a couple of minutes left, and you've brought some photos, so I was hoping that you could take us through them, tell us a bit about what we're seeing.
Yeah, so this is the day of the swearing-in ceremony, and this was actually taken by a former constituent in Prince Rupert, just John Horgan and I getting on the bus. But yeah, this is some of the frontline wildfire crew that we met. This is a Skeena contingent, and these folks are actually in Williams Lake. Came down, and young, fit guys and girls working on the front lines fighting fires, and we're grateful for their service. This is a pre-OC. This is like an emergency coordination center, and we're getting a tour of how the incident command system works. Fascinating process. Everyone has a role to play. EMBC does a great job of coordinating the consequent management of emergencies such as wildfires. And so great chance. Oh, this is just in the constituency, talking to a youth group, giving them a speech about my foray into politics and how that happened for me. Again, this is at the Fairview container terminal expansion opening, and this is one of the workers. There's a few photos, I think, of this. Yeah. Glenn Edwards, head of our local longshore in Prince Rupert, and port manager as well, Ken Veldman. And again, Rob Ashton, he's head of ILWU Canada. This is the longshore union, big union, important union in Prince Rupert. These are the people that are doing the work. And again, here's Minister Trevena and Minister Ralston. So glad that they were able to get up to Prince Rupert to see the container terminal expansion. Jim Terrion, former Rupertite, fundraises every year for the Terry Fox Run, has fundraised thousands and thousands, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he comes every year in Prince Rupert to fundraise for us.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have, Jen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with me.
Okay.
And thanks to you at home for watching. This has been Constituency Report on Shaw TV.